Since Repair Clinic encourages you to perform this procedure safely, a warning icon will appear when you should use caution. Many refrigerator repairs will require some disassembly of the appliance. Before you attempt this, be sure to unplug the power cord. You should shut off the water supply as well. To access components behind the lower rear access panel, have an assistant help you to roll the refrigerator away from the wall. Use a 1/4-inch socket or nut driver to unthread the screws securing the water supply line retainer to the rear panel. Use a 1/2-inch wrench or an adjustable wrench to unthread the compression nut to detach the supply line from the inlet valve. Be prepared for some water to spill. Now unthread the remaining screws to release the access panel. You can now reach the water inlet valve, run capacitor, and the compressor start relay. If you need to replace the start relay, use pliers to release the wire retainer, securing the relay, and run capacitor assembly. You can use a flathead screwdriver to help detach the assembly from the compressor motor pins. Detach the run capacitor, then depress the tab to disconnect the wire connector to fully release the old relay. Install the new start relay by first connecting the wire connector. Then align the capacitor and push it into position. Align the relay and capacitor assembly on the compressor motor pins and push it into place. Secure with the wire retainer. With the repair completed, reinstall the access panel. Attach the water supply line to the inlet valve by threading the compression nut. Avoid over-tightening the nut. Slide on the retainer and secure it to the rear panel with the access panel mounting screw. You can now push the refrigerator back against the wall. To uninstall the water and ice dispenser components, first remove the drip tray. Then use a Phillips head screwdriver to unthread the 3 lower screws, securing the front dispenser panel. Slide the panel up to detach. Then disconnect the wire connector. To remove the dispenser module, use the Phillips head screwdriver or a No. 2 square drive bit to unthread the 3 mounting screws. Slide out the dispenser water line and disconnect the wire connector to fully release the assembly. Before you install a new dispenser module, we recommend increasing the slack in the water dispenser line to make the installation easier. To do this, detach the lower grill and use a 7/16" wrench to depress the retaining ring to release the water line from the coupler. Push the line up through the door to increase the slack. Now insert the end of the dispenser water line through the hole in the new module. Connect the wire connector and fully position the module. Thread the screws to secure. Reinstall the front panel by first connecting the wire connector. Align the tabs with the slots in the door and slide down. Rethread the lower screws. Replace the drip tray. Reinsert the end of the water line into the coupler until fully seated. Realign the grill and snap it into place. To access user control and air damper components, use a 1/4-inch socket or nut driver to unthread all of the screws, securing the user control and air damper housing. Pull the freezer thermistor out of the hole in the liner and disconnect both the main wire harness and the secondary wire connector to fully remove the assembly. If you need to replace the user control, first peel back the tape as necessary. Pull the front edge of the housing forward to detach the user control. Note the location of the wires, then disconnect them from the control. Install the new user control by first connecting the wires to the appropriate terminals. Align the control in the housing and snap it into place. Replace the tape. Reinstall the housing by reconnecting the main wire harness and the secondary wire connector. Insert the freezer thermistor into the hole in the liner. Fully position the housing and thread all of the screws to secure. To uninstall the ice maker, lift the ice bucket assembly up in the front, then pull straight out. Use a 1/4-inch socket or nut driver to loosen the 2 ice maker mounting screws. You can now lift the ice maker off of the screws and disconnect the wire connector. To access the ice auger drive motor components, unthread the lower screws, securing the drive motor assembly. Depress the tab to disconnect the wire harness. You can now lift the assembly up and out. To replace the drive motor, use a screwdriver to help loosen the auger drive coupler, then fully unthread it. Use a Phillips head screwdriver to unthread the 3 ice auger drive motor mounting screws. Lift out the motor and use the 1/4-inch socket or nut driver to unthread the screw to release the grounding wire. Disconnect the power wires to fully release the old motor. Install a new drive motor by first connecting the power wires to the terminals. Secure the grounding wire under the screw. Align the motor in the housing and thread the 3 mounting screws. Thread the drive coupler onto the motor shaft and tighten. Reinstall the ice auger drive motor assembly by hooking the tabs into the slots in the support rails. Thread the 2 lower screws. Connect the wire harness. Reinstall the ice maker by first connecting the wire connector. Align the ice maker on the fill tube and the mounting screws. Then tighten the screws. Reinstall the ice bucket assembly by positioning it on the rails and sliding it straight back. To access the evaporator, you will need to remove all of the freezer compartment shelving, along with the bottom drawer. Use a 1/4-inch socket or nut driver to unthread the 4 screws, securing the lower evaporator cover. Slide the cover up to remove. Next, unthread the 2 screws securing the middle of the upper cover. You can now lift and support the cover to access the evaporator components. If you need to replace the fan motor, lift out the motor assembly and depress the tabs to disconnect the wire connector. Pull off the fan blade. Depress the tabs to release the motor retaining bracket, and you can remove the old motor. Prepare the new evaporator fan motor for installation by transferring the 2 motor mounts and the slinger from the old motor to the new one. Position the motor in the housing and replace the retaining bracket to secure. Slide the fan blade onto the motor shaft until it is fully seated. Returning to the freezer compartment, connect the wire connector and position the fan motor housing. Remove the support, realign the upper evaporator cover, and thread the 2 middle screws. Slide the lower cover into place and rethread the 4 screws to secure. Replace the bottom drawer and reinstall all of the shelving. Uninstalling both the refrigerator and freezer doors requires the removal of the top door hinge. When removing the freezer door, you will also need to detach the lower grill and depress the retaining ring to release the dispenser water supply line from the coupler. You should also cut the tape securing the water line spring and slide the spring off. Now use a Phillips head screwdriver to unthread the screws securing the appropriate top door hinge cover. Slide the cover forward to remove. When removing the freezer door, you will need to disconnect the wire connector and use a 1/4-inch socket or nut driver to unthread the screw to release the grounding wire. Support the door and use a 3/8-inch socket or wrench to unthread the 2 mounting screws, securing the hinge. Lift the top hinge straight up and over the wires if required. You can now have an assistant help you to lift the door off of the lower hinge. Reinstall the door by positioning it on the hinge pin. For the freezer door, feed the water line through the hinge. Reinstall the top hinge by sliding it over the wires, if necessary, then align it on the door. Thread the 2 mounting screws to secure. If required, reconnect the wire connector and secure the grounding wire under the screw. Realign the hinge cover and thread the screw to secure. If applicable, reposition the dispenser water supply line spring approximately 2 inches from the end of the line, then use tape to secure the spring. Insert the end of the water line into the coupler until fully seated. Realign the grill and snap it into place. With the reassembly complete, turn the water supply back on. Plug the power cord back in, and your refrigerator should be ready for use.